Do you trust real estate agents? Well, if you do, give us a thumbs up. If you don't, I'd ask you to give us a thumbs down, but that could really hurt my channel's performance. So maybe think before you give us a thumbs down, but if you don't trust them, go ahead and give us a thumbs down. So I'm asking, do you trust real estate agents? This video is actually going to be about the property market and how it's performing at the moment, but I think it's an important question to ask just to set the stage. I recently saw a poll on trust levels within different professions. Nurses, teachers and scientists were at the top of that poll, and real estate agents were down towards the bottom, just ahead of politicians and lobbyists and a few others. My business and every estate agent's business here in Ireland is actually based on trust, and we have to have very high levels of trust. Our clients trust us with some of their most valuable assets that they have. We also sometimes have to deal with large volumes of cash that belong to our clients, so therefore our clients deeply need to trust us. You'd have to be one stupid ass agent to put in a fake bid nowadays. The risk to rewards just aren't there, and I don't know if they ever were there. Basically, the reward is probably maybe €100 extra in a fee, but the risks actually are vast. It can mean losing your license, imprisonment, £500,000 fine, just for the sake of €100 odd in an extra fee. That doesn't make any sense to me, and you'd want to be one stupid ass agent to even think to do it. All offers are recorded, and actually we're audited every few years as well by the licensing authority. And if we don't get this right, we actually run the risk of losing our license. If we lose our license, we lose our business. So why is there so much mistrust, and why are real estate agents not trusted? I think it boils down to two facts. The first is, no matter how good of a job you do, or no matter how many bids or interested parties there are in a property, there can be only two winners: the seller and the new homeowner. Which could mean that there actually could be 10 or plus more underbidders that feel that they've been hard done by and want to blame someone else. The second factor, and perhaps the more important factor, and buyers should always remember this: agents aren't working for you, they're working for the seller. And their job to the seller as their client is to make sure that they maximize the price that they achieve for their property. I think this is an important fact, so make sure you keep it in mind for the rest of the video. So where are property prices at the moment, and where might they be going? Some agents think the market is in a good place, and recent reports from Daft actually are suggesting that prices are going up. Even I am a bit confused in trying to understand where the market is exactly at the moment, so I decided I'd go in and look at some more of the facts in some more detail. First off, a lot of people actually believe that the lack of supply will actually make sure that property prices stay high. However, if that was true, what the hell was going on in 2012 and 2013 when we were at the lowest house prices we were in recent years, and also we were at the lowest supply as well? The most recent DAFT report actually suggests that asking prices increased by 3.7% in the month of May, and that was following a decrease of 5.5% in April. I just want to make a few points on this actual report and actually how it was reported in the media as well. First off, it's actually based on asking prices, and asking prices is never a good way to start a valuation or reviewing a market, particularly in a downturning market. Let's actually consider the numbers that were put out by Daft, as well as the headlines that were in the Irish Times and other newspapers. They suggested that asking prices in April fell by 5.5%. Let's just take that as £1 million house dropping by 5.5%, or the asking price dropping by 5.5%. That basically creates a new asking price in a hypothetical situation of 945,000, right? Then let's just say that they're right in assuming that asking prices went back up by 3.7% in May. We apply that to the new asking price of 945,000. That gives us a new asking price of about €980,000. That effectively means within the space of 2 months, we are still looking at an asking price drop of 2%. That's quite a significant drop of an asking price in 2 months. And as I said, asking prices are not a great way to look into a market. And I'll give you a few reasons why. So I've actually personally inquired about a number of properties around Dublin, mainly focusing kind of Dublin 6 and Dublin 8 for personal reasons and for client reasons. And I can just kind of give you a few highlights of asking prices and actual bid levels, okay? So in one property, it was on the market originally for 750. It actually dropped its asking price to 600 during the lockdown period. And I know for a fact that the top bid on that was actually 500. Another property came on the market during lockdown. It came in at close to an 800,000 asking price. The only offer that I'm aware of on that property was 750. Another property again near town came in at 750 of an asking price. I know that the offers on that came in around 640. And I can go on countless other examples where that has actually happened as well. But I was actually surprised about the number of offers that were coming in on properties. Even if they were below the asking, I was surprised with the level of interest during lockdown. And I was even more surprised by the number of actually properties that were reported to go on sale agreed just after lockdown by some agents. And fair play, absolutely hats off to them for achieving their asking prices on some of the properties. But I did actually say a few weeks ago that I was surprised with the level of interest and demand within some properties within Dublin. And there seemed to be a lot of demand for some properties out there. But I think actually two factors are at play here. And one, it is really a supply and demand factor right now at this particular point in time. One, on the actual demand side, we have about 15,000 buyers out there who are mortgage approved who are desperately trying to find a house. And that is leading to pent up kind of demand to get out there and put offers in on properties because they're fearful that it may become harder to get their mortgage approved later on in the year. On the supply side, the level of houses coming onto the market during lockdown has pretty much fallen off a cliff. They're down 70% year on year. While properties are coming back onto the market now, I would point out that a number of the properties that are coming back onto the market now are actually properties that fell through during the lockdown period. I'm aware of about 6 or 7 properties that I looked at before lockdown that have come back on, that were sale agreed, that have now come back onto the market, and they've come back onto the market with the same asking prices. But in 6 of these examples, I can tell you that the actual sale agreed price was lower than the asking prices pre-lockdown. So the agents are bringing them back on the market with the same asking price as they were previously, knowing that they didn't even achieve that pre-lockdown. So actually looking at asking prices is never a good tool to use in terms of valuing property. And the actual lack of houses coming onto the market at the moment actually makes it even a poorer way to review the market. So looking at asking prices in a falling market is never a good way to determine property prices. And actually the lack of houses coming onto the market actually skews the overall average asking price as well. So sale prices are actually a far better way to look at the actual property values. But the level of sales have actually dropped off a cliff as well. So therefore, when you're looking at averages, you have to know that actually you're not comparing the same volume of sales as you were before. So you have to be careful in regards to looking at the data. So I will give you some figures to illustrate what is actually happening in the market to give you some idea of how many sales are actually completing at the moment. So nationally, in December, the average number of completed sales was about 5,000. That has dropped to just less than 2,000 in May. The average completed sale price in January of this year was actually 285,000. Compare that to May of this year, where the average completed sale price was actually only 268,000. That's a 6% drop. But you need to be careful when you're looking at these averages because there's 3,000 less sales that actually happened in May nationally. So therefore that is going to have an impact on the overall average price. So when you actually look at Dublin, there was 1,685 sales completed in December. When you compare that to May of this year, where there was only just a little over 500 sales completed. The average price in December was 450,000. Compare that to the average price in May, which was 405,000. That's nearly a 9% drop. Again, it's extremely important to remember that these are just averages, and the level of sales transactions that happened in May are far less than what happened in December. So therefore that is going to have an impact on the actual overall average because you're not comparing a full market to the actual lockdown market. So it's not completely fair to assume the prices have dropped by 9%. But it is also important to remember that actually a number of the sales that probably did complete in May were probably agreed pre-lockdown. And maybe what has happened in terms of the actual prices dropping is that some price chips happened in legals. Don't actually get me wrong here, I'm actually very positive for the future of the market and I have a lot of hope for the market, but I do think there will be some short-term pain going to happen within the market. So looking at or trying to understand what actually might happen with property prices. Generally speaking, property prices rise or fall about 6 months after the economy does. Property prices took about 4 to 5 years to hit the bottom in the last recession. This is called the lag effect. It's been something that has been studied for 80 to 100 odd years. It's something I read about while I was in college. While I was in college, they actually did explain that the lag would actually get shorter and shorter all the time as data becomes more readily available to the public. But I still think we're experiencing this lag effect mainly because sellers are unwilling to admit to themselves that the property prices have fallen. So property linked investment funds actually took a nosedive during lockdown. Some of them fell by 30 to 40%. So these are investments that are listed on the stock exchange, but their asset is based on property values. But they fell dramatically during the lockdown. Most of them actually have picked up again and they've gained by kind of 10, 15 or 20%. And they're now trading on an average of about 20% lower than they would normally trade at. A lot of analysts actually believe they're still undervalued by about 10%, but that just explains that perhaps we're heading for at least a 10% drop in values over the next kind of 6 months. During the week, I attended an online CPD event put on by the SES Ireland. There was probably about 100 to 250 people attending, but they asked everyone at the start of the seminar a number of questions, poll questions about where they think the market is going, a number of different commercial questions, residential and so on. But one of the questions they asked was, where do you think bank valuations will be in the next 6 months? Participants were given a number of different options, 5 different options ranging from 5% to 10% and so on. But what actually came out of that data was 47% of the room actually thought that bank valuations would only be affected by about 0 to 5%, and 53% thought that bank valuations would be affected by or be reduced by more than 5% over the next 6 months. So I still can't tell you where property prices might go over the next 6 months, 9 months or a year, or how much they'll fall by or if they'll fall at all. But generally speaking, there's 4 economic indicators that are used to predict where property prices are going to go. That is GDP, the unemployment rate, interest rates and inflation. GDP is going to fall off a cliff. Unemployment is going to be at the highest level we've ever seen it, in my time anyway. So therefore you'd have to assume property prices will fall as well. When they'll start falling or how much they'll fall by is still anyone's guess, but I kind of feel, I'll let my thoughts be known on this one, but I think our one saving grace will be that capital will be available at low interest rates, and I think that will be our main saving grace, as well as the fact that there will be limited supply. So hopefully that will save us from a massive drop, and hopefully the drop will be manageable and we'll be able to recover within the next kind of year to 2. To give you an indication of how that actually might look, I put out a video a few weeks ago or a week ago on the recession curves. I basically said it was unlikely we're going to have a V-shaped recession curve and we'll be more along the lines of having a U-shaped recession curve. However, when Donald Trump comes out and tweets that we're heading for a V-shaped curve, I'm not quite sure if that's actually confirmation that we're definitely not going to get a V-shaped curve or what the hell is going to actually happen. But Donald Trump was actually referring to a Morgan Stanley report that in that report they were betting on a V-shaped curve. But when you actually read into that report, what they were suggesting is that economic levels or output levels will be back up to where they were pre-lockdown in anywhere between 4 to 8 quarters. That means it could take 2 years to get back to where we were. So I'm not going to call that a V-shaped curve. We are a very open economy and we depend on international trade. COVID is still on the rise in 18 states in America. There's large amounts of civil unrest in the UK and the US. Brexit is still to happen later this year. We all assume it will happen at this stage. But businesses and households are in a bubble at the moment because of government supports. And that's not just here in Ireland. We're getting government supports here in Ireland, but they're also getting them in the UK, they're getting them around Europe and in the US. Once government supports drop or slow down, then we'll see the real impact of where we are, and that will have a real impact on the economy as a whole. Coming out of lockdown isn't going to solve the problem either. Social distancing is actually going to be a huge challenge to businesses on how we operate, and going to add massive costs to businesses as well. The Economist did a great video on this recently, where economies have to run at 80% of where, or 90% of what they were previously, to be able to deal with the social distancing measures. This video is actually very insightful in terms of how that will impact the economy as a whole, and I will include a link below. Regardless of any negativity, I'm actually very optimistic in regards to the market, but prices will have to come down and will have to become affordable. From an international affordable index point of view, we are so unaffordable in terms of our salaries versus property prices. The government and the NTMA have already proven that they can borrow large volumes of funds at cheap interest rates at less than 0.3%. This is great news for Ireland. During the last recession, interest rates that were being applied in Ireland were like 6 and 7%, and that's just not affordable for a country. But interest rates at 0.3% or less are fantastic for us, or fantastic for the government, to be able to borrow large volumes of money, and I hope and I know they will borrow more money to invest in the country and invest in infrastructure. So therefore, the outlook for the country as an overall whole is very, very positive. But in terms of value within the actual property market right now, I'm struggling to find it. But that said, I am out there looking personally and out for a number of clients, and we're ready to do deals on properties if we find any good value. To summarise, look into sale prices, not asking prices, when you're actually looking into where the market is going. There's a lot of global negativity that's actually happening out there in terms of civil unrest in lots of different countries, as well as we still haven't got a handle on this virus. But from a local and national point of view, the outlook is quite good. We should have a stable economy. Hopefully now we'll have a stable government, and our government will have the potential to borrow billions to invest into our country. If you like this video, please give it a like and make sure to subscribe. And as always, thanks a million for watching.